Welcome back everyone to a new episode of AI Discussions. This is going to be part 2 of the entire Godzilla franchise. I'm mainly doing these videos for fun, but also, a good steady income. It'd be hard out there. Help your boy out, support the channel, and subscribe for more fun discussions. Alright, enough introduction. Let's continue with more Godzilla. So we left off on the Heisei series with Godzilla and Mothra, the battle for Earth. So in this one, after a meteorite crash lands on Earth, it awakens Godzilla and another monster called Batra. Batra's role in the world is supposed to protect Earth but goes too far and starts destroying cities in Japan. This is where Mothra comes in to try and stop him. Godzilla gets caught in between their rivalry and they both jumped Godzilla instead and they eventually beat Godzilla. This one was another weaker entry. It has some fun fight scenes, but the human characters are a bit flawed, with them going on an island, finding Mothra's egg and supporting Mothra to stop Godzilla. They're okay, just the main dude trying to redeem himself for being a thief. So, yeah, not bad, but the next one I find a bit better. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 is a good one. Basically, the military builds Mechagodzilla by using parts of Mecha King Ghidorah to fight Godzilla. Meanwhile, a group of scientists find an egg on an island and also find Rodan trying to attack them. Godzilla emerges out of the ocean and confronts Rodan and defeats him. Later, the egg hatches and turns out to be Godzilla's son. Godzilla starts attacking Japan trying to search for his son. The military launches Mechagodzilla to combat Godzilla and fails. The military sends more firepower to combat Godzilla but also fails. Godzilla continues to search for his son, while also destroying Kyoto, Japan. Godzilla then returns to the sea. Later, when the military tries to move Godzilla's son to a better location, Rodan swoops in and starts going after Godzilla's son in a container. Rodan starts breaking open the container. The military launches Mechagodzilla again to fight off Rodan. After Mechagodzilla defeats Rodan, Godzilla emerges out of the ocean to battle Mechagodzilla once more. Mechagodzilla actually ends up gaining the upper hand against Godzilla by blowing up a second brain they found in Godzilla's thigh. Little ridiculous, but it is what it is. Lucky for Godzilla though, Rodan was still alive, revived Godzilla, and obliterated Mechagodzilla. Godzilla then finally finds his son, and with the help of Miki Sagusa, she was able to persuade Godzilla's son psychically to go with Godzilla, and both of them end off to the sea. I actually really enjoyed this one. It had fun battles, decent practical effects, and the human characters weren't too bad. I like the sweet, touching moment between this woman scientist who takes care of Godzilla's son for the remaining of the movie. Everyone else did fine too. So yeah, this was a good one. Now, Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla is considered to be another weak entry in the franchise, but it still has fun in it. So basically Godzilla's cells being cast into space, potentially after his battle with Biollante or Mothra. These cells then fell into a black hole and after passing through a white hole, re-emerged as a mutated, crystalline life form. This new entity, Space Godzilla, also assimilated cosmic crystalline organisms during its transformation. The military builds a new giant robot called Moguera, which is supposed to be a more advanced version of Mechagodzilla to combat Godzilla, but I think it looks kinda dumb and weaker than Mechagodzilla. Anyways, on an island, the military also sends a team along with Miki Sagusa to see if they can somehow psychically control Godzilla, but she doesn't want to. They find Godzilla's son on the island who looks a little older, and Godzilla rises out of the sea. The team then tries to do their test to see if they can psychically move Godzilla. Meanwhile, NASA gets notice of Space Godzilla headed towards Earth, so the military sends Moguera to stop him. Moguera and Space Godzilla battle in space and Space Godzilla defeats Moguera. Space Godzilla then lands on Earth and starts attacking Godzilla's son. Godzilla then rushes to his son's rescue. Unfortunately, Space Godzilla overpowers Godzilla and traps his son in a crystallized prison. Space Godzilla leaves and Godzilla chases after him. Meanwhile, the Yakuza wants to use Mickey's power for their own use, so our main characters go on to stop them. Space Godzilla lands in Fukuoka and uses the city as his fortress to draw power from a tower. Godzilla finally reaches Space Godzilla, Moguera joins the fight, and a tag team between Godzilla and Moguera versus Space Godzilla. Space Godzilla gets pissed off and overpowers both of them. Eventually Godzilla starts emitting energy, gains enough power, and obliterates Space Godzilla. Godzilla returns to the ocean and his son is free. As much as the writing isn't the best in this one, the action sequences are still fun to watch. This was an okay one. Now, this is the final Godzilla movie in the Heisei series, Godzilla vs. Destoroyah. Honestly, this movie is one of the greatest Godzilla movies out there. So, basically, in this one, Godzilla's heart is on the verge of a nuclear meltdown because he absorbed way too much radiation from an island exploding. Godzilla starts attacking Hong Kong, and the military is trying to figure out what's wrong with him, and they're also looking for a new and colder way to fight him off. They even try to come up with another way to stop him by recreating the oxygen destroyer from 1954, the same thing that killed the first Godzilla. Some folks were really against it, but the military thinks there's just no other option. Otherwise Godzilla could explode and destroy the entire world. Meanwhile, fish in an aquarium start dying for some weird reason, and they find out that the oxygen destroyer used in 1954 actually mutated a crustacean, and it's been mutating ever since. Now it's formed a bunch of 8 to 10 foot tall creatures, and the military goes after them with flamethrowers to take them out. Meanwhile, Godzilla heads toward a nuclear power plant, and the military launches the Super X-3, which is loaded with freezer weapons and cadmium shells to keep him at bay. Surprisingly, the Super X-3 actually manages to freeze Godzilla for a decent amount of time, but his temperature is still rising super fast. Miki Sagusa finds Godzilla Jr. near a beach, and he actually almost looks like Godzilla now. Meanwhile, the military fights off those crustacean-like creatures, and they all end up merging into a bigger monster called Destoroyah. Destoroyah starts attacking Japan, and the military comes up with a plan to use Godzilla Jr. as bait, so Godzilla will follow and fight Destoroyah. Godzilla Jr. ends up fighting Destoroyah, and after getting critically injured, Godzilla manages to defeat Destoroyah for a little while. While Godzilla and his son reunite, Destoroyah just pops out of the fire and turns even more gigantic, looking like a goddamn demon. Destoroyah ends up killing Jr. and starts fighting Godzilla. Godzilla gets pissed and just beats the crap out of Destoroyah. Godzilla goes to check on his son, but unfortunately he dies. Never would I have thought you'd get emotionally attached to giant monsters, but here we are. Destoroyah, being an absolute jerk, confronts Godzilla again and starts spamming his atomic breath. Destoroyah tries to fly away, but with help from the military they manage to bring Destoroyah down, and he blows up like an atomic bomb. Godzilla then proceeds to melt down and eventually dies. This was probably one of the sadder endings to a Godzilla movie, and you kind of feel bad for him. He dies thinking he also lost his son. All was quiet and no one really cheered after Godzilla's death. But then, out of the smoke, a shadowy figure emerges and Godzilla's son is revived, turning into a new Godzilla. This movie was just great. It had a badass design for Godzilla, an awesome villain design for Destoroyah, and really nice character development for Godzilla Jr. A pretty sad ending for Godzilla too. The human characters were decent, trying to find different ways to stop Godzilla before he explodes, which was already a super interesting idea. So yeah, great Godzilla movie. But, the Godzilla movies don't just end there. Even though it seemed like a pretty solid conclusion for the franchise, they wanted to do more. That's where the Millennium series comes in next, and honestly, I find these movies to be pretty badass, well, most of them anyway. These movies are more like an anthology series, showing different versions of what happened to Godzilla after 1954. So, first up is Godzilla 2000. This one's a fun ride, even though it's got some issues. Basically, there's this little research team, a dad, his daughter, and their friend, who are chasing Godzilla to study him. They get a little too close and almost get crushed by Godzilla. Then Godzilla goes on to attack Japan. Meanwhile, another research team finds this unidentified life form that looks like a rock in the ocean. The rock emerges and the researchers go check it out. The military, meanwhile, comes up with a new armor-piercing missile to try to take down Godzilla. Godzilla shows up, and the military starts fighting him. Suddenly the giant rock starts moving and just flies away. The giant rock then confronts Godzilla and attacks him. After Godzilla weakens it, the rock starts eroding away. Turns out it's not a rock at all, it's actually a giant UFO. The UFO lands on top of a building and starts collecting data about human civilization and Godzilla. Its goal is to get Godzilla's DNA so it can reshape itself, survive, and basically invade Earth. The military tries to blow up the UFO, but that doesn't do anything. Godzilla heads toward the UFO and confronts it. After a pretty frustrating battle, the UFO breaks a building off and drops it on Godzilla. The UFO starts taking Godzilla's DNA and begins forming an alien-like creature, just keeps metamorphosing. Godzilla breaks out of the building and destroys the UFO. The alien, now transformed into this giant monster called Orga, battles Godzilla. They try everything to defeat Godzilla, but nothing works, not even his atomic breath. Orga then tries to eat Godzilla. Luckily, Godzilla outsmarts Orga and blows him up from the inside out. Godzilla finally defeats Orga. Godzilla then kills Katagiri, who's the head of the CCI and honestly, kind of an asshole. Godzilla keeps destroying the city while, weirdly, also protecting Earth at the same time. I actually find this movie pretty cool, but yeah, it's got some issues with the writing and some of the early CGI just doesn't really hold up. But I always thought Godzilla's design in this movie was badass. Orga was cool too. The human characters were alright, so yeah, it has some issues, but it's still a cool one. Alright, next is Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, which honestly is another weak entry in the franchise. So, basically in this one, after Godzilla destroys Japan in 1954, the same Godzilla still lives and doesn't get killed by the oxygen destroyer. The Japanese government comes up with this new way to get clean energy using plasma instead of nuclear, which of course attracts Godzilla. The military then develops a new weapon to defeat Godzilla, a miniaturized, human-made black hole gun. I think there's a lot of issues with using this kind of weapon, like the risk it could pose to the planet might cause some problems, so I hope they at least tested it. So, they go and test the black hole gun on an abandoned building and it was successful, but a wormhole emerged after the effects. Later, this kid sees something flying in the sky and, of course, he goes to investigate. He finds an egg in the forest and, for some reason, decides to keep it. The egg starts leaking and he dumps it in the sewers. Then this big-ass insect starts eating some people and begins to molt. Meanwhile, the G-graspers find a dead Meganula in the water and start investigating it. Godzilla then emerges out of the ocean and they're able to plant a tracking device on him. Back in Japan, the cities are flooded, and the military finds multiple Meganulas on the side of a building. Godzilla then makes landfall on an island where the Meganula start attacking him for his energy. After defeating the Meganulas, the military launches the black hole gun at Godzilla, but they freaking miss. The few Meganula that survive go back to the flooded city and give some of Godzilla's energy to an even more gigantic dragonfly-like creature known as Megaguirus. Megaguirus emerges out of the water and attacks Japan. Godzilla heads towards Tokyo Bay to lure Godzilla into a more densely populated area to use the black hole gun. Megaguirus then starts attacking Godzilla, and honestly, this is probably one of the funnier fights in the Millennium series. After Megaguirus drains most of Godzilla's energy, he can't use his atomic breath, so he needs to be more strategic, using more melee attacks, even does a freaking body slam. After an irritating battle, Godzilla bites Megaguirus' stinger off and finally kills her. The black hole gun starts falling out of orbit, and they decide to fire it one last time, actually succeeding in stopping Godzilla. However, there's a post-credit scene that kinda says otherwise. So yeah, this one was a weaker entry. Megaguirus wasn't really too interesting of a monster, and the human characters are a bit unlikable, not gonna lie, but there's still some fun in between. Now Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah Giant Monsters All-Out Attack is a badass movie. Basically in this one, Godzilla is reincarnated by World War II soul victims, so he's basically possessed, which is why he's got those white eyes. Mothra, Baragon, and King Ghidorah go and try to stop him. Funny enough, this is the only movie where King Ghidorah is an anti-hero, or at least less of a threat to humanity. So everyone doesn't believe Godzilla exists because he hasn't been seen for 50 years. So everyone's skeptical about him returning or if he even existed at all. Godzilla does emerge out of the ocean and starts attacking Japan. First up is Baragon. Baragon emerges out of the ground and battles Godzilla, but gets freaking annihilated. The military sends some jets to fight Godzilla, but fails. Next up is Mothra, and she seems to have a slight advantage against Godzilla, and then finally King Ghidorah rises from the ground. Both Mothra and King Ghidorah manage to subdue Godzilla. Unfortunately, that doesn't last long, because Godzilla charges at King Ghidorah, bites one of his heads, swats Mothra, and knocks out King Ghidorah. The military develops a drilling missile called the D-03 to drill into Godzilla's skin and blow up, but, of course, that didn't work. Mothra then tries to get Godzilla from behind but gets absolutely obliterated. Mothra's power revives King Ghidorah, and King Ghidorah manages to take advantage of Godzilla and send him back to the ocean. Godzilla and King Ghidorah continue to fight underwater. The Navy then uses these mini-submarines with a D-03 missile attached to see if they can pierce Godzilla's wound with the missile. Godzilla knocks out King Ghidorah again. King Ghidorah gets revived one last time from a shard from a guardian monster statue that one of our main characters had. King Ghidorah powers up and starts blasting Godzilla with his gravity beams. Unfortunately, Godzilla just absorbs the attack and obliterates King Ghidorah, sending pieces of him into the sea. The souls of Mothra, Baragon, and King Ghidorah form, and I think bring Godzilla down to the bottom of the sea. The naval commander dives deep into Godzilla's mouth and launches the missile inside him. After our main character almost falls to their death from a destroyed bridge, Godzilla emerges right in front of them and looks down furiously. He then charges his atomic breath, which would have been overkill, but fortunately, the missile explodes Godzilla's shoulder, and his atomic breath starts coming out his shoulder, and he falls back into the ocean. Godzilla then tries to use his atomic breath again, but ends up blowing himself up, leaving his beating heart at the bottom of the ocean. As ridiculous as that ending sounds, this movie was badass. They made Godzilla into an unstoppable force, just beating the crap out of everything and everyone, and I'm not gonna lie, it was satisfying to see, even if Godzilla is on the villain side in this movie. The effects for a 2001 movie, though not perfect, were still really exhilarating to see. I definitely recommend this one. Godzilla against Mechagodzilla is a decent one, but honestly I don't think it was as epic as GMK. So basically Godzilla emerges and starts attacking Japan. The military is able to salvage the old 1954 Godzilla bones and use them to build Mechagodzilla. When Godzilla starts attacking Japan again, they launch Mechagodzilla to see how well it'll do against him. So far, it seems to be damaging Godzilla. But all of a sudden, Mechagodzilla starts malfunctioning after Godzilla's roar. When Godzilla dives back into the sea, Mechagodzilla starts going haywire and begins destroying the city. Mechagodzilla then shuts down after an hour, and the military sends him back to base. They do repairs and inspections to make sure it doesn't go haywire again. Godzilla starts attacking again, and they launch Mechagodzilla again. This time they finally have a successful and tough battle where they manage to critically injure Godzilla using the Absolute Zero cannon. It doesn't kill Godzilla, but he retreats back into the sea. This movie wasn't too bad. The human characters are decent, with the main woman lead trying to redeem herself for a mistake she made in the beginning of the movie. To be honest, this movie wasn't anything amazing because it's just mainly a battle between Mechagodzilla and Godzilla, and that's pretty much it. The plot isn't too bad though, just a little repetitive. Still had some cool scenes though. Next is Godzilla Tokyo SOS, which is actually a direct sequel to Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. So basically the two fairies who guard Mothra ask the people of Japan to put Godzilla's bones back into the sea to be put to rest because it's disturbing the natural order, or else Mothra would do it for them. But ignoring their pleas, they continued using Mechagodzilla when Godzilla returns. First, Mothra confronts Godzilla and battles him. When things weren't going anywhere, the military launches Mechagodzilla anyway to help Mothra defeat Godzilla. After a long battle, Godzilla kills Mothra. Godzilla and Mechagodzilla battle more, and when Godzilla gets injured, the Mothra larvae wrap Godzilla in silk and knock him out. Then, Mechagodzilla starts controlling himself and takes Godzilla out to sea. Mechagodzilla then sinks itself with Godzilla. This movie was another decent one with fun fight scenes and a decent human plot. It goes kinda quick though, so it feels like you didn't get much Godzilla. Now Godzilla Final Wars is a crazy-ass movie. When a bunch of giant monsters, Rodan, Zilla, Kamakuras, Anguirus and Kumanga, King Caesar and Abira, start destroying world cities, aliens come down to Earth and abduct all of the Earth's monsters. The aliens present themselves as peaceful to ally themselves with Earth. During the beginning of the movie, the flying ship called the Gotengo manages to freeze Manda and kill him. The aliens then negotiate terms to live amongst humankind. Unfortunately, of course, the aliens turn on them to actually invade Earth and unleash all of the Earth's monsters on world cities. So the good guys launch the Gotengo to Antarctica to unleash Godzilla, since they buried Godzilla a long time ago. The aliens unleash Gigan and start attacking the Gotengo ship. They unleash Godzilla and Godzilla annihilates Gigan. Godzilla then follows the Gotengo and makes him follow them to the other monsters. Godzilla fights Zilla in Australia and obliterates him. He fights Kumonga in New Guinea and tosses him across the land. They then reach Japan where he fights Kamacuras and easily defeats him. Godzilla then goes near Mount Fuji where he fights Rodan, Anguirus and King Caesar and embarrasses them. The good guys then infiltrate the alien ship where they're stopped by the aliens and taken hostage. Hedorah and Ebirah get dropped off by the aliens and also get totally annihilated by Godzilla. The aliens then call a meteorite heralding towards Earth, and Godzilla blows it up point blank out of the atmosphere. But unfortunately the meteorite turns out to be a giant monster called Monster X, which is under the aliens' control and starts beating the crap out of Godzilla. Mothra then comes to assist Godzilla, but the aliens unleash Gigan again with some new weapons and injure Mothra. Godzilla then battles both Monster X and Gigan. Meanwhile, the good guys start fighting the aliens on the ship at the same time the monsters fight. It's all fighting. Gigan kills Mothra, but Mothra's power also kills Gigan. Now it's just Godzilla versus Monster X. After the good guys blow up the alien ship, Monster X turns into Kaiser Ghidorah and starts beating up Godzilla and draining his energy. The good guys use the Gotengo to give Godzilla a boost of power and Godzilla proceeds to kick major ass. Godzilla sends Kaiser Ghidorah up in the air and blasts him out of the atmosphere. Godzilla then confronts the people and his son stops him from harming the people. Godzilla starts calming down and heads towards the ocean along with his son. This movie was ridiculous, crazy, and badass all at once. As a kid, I absolutely loved Godzilla kicking everyone's ass. As an adult, I can clearly see the flaws it has, but I still get a joy out of this one. So yeah, give this one a watch for some ridiculous badass fun. Now we start the Monsterverse, which is America's take on Godzilla, and I'd say they're doing a pretty decent job at it. Granted, it does have issues, but I appreciate them staying true to the characters. So, Godzilla 2014 is good, but it does have pacing issues, some human issues, and honestly the issue of cutting away from the monster fights. So, basically when a nuclear plant gets destroyed, the government covers it up and says it was a meltdown, but our main characters went to investigate the truth. They find out they were really hiding some giant monster called a Muto, which happens to be a male. The male Muto flies away after hatching out of a cocoon and attacking the research facility. When the male Muto reaches Hawaii, it attacks a submarine and begins eating a nuclear missile. Godzilla then emerges out of the ocean to bring an equal balance to the natural order, and confronts the male Muto. It was annoying when they cut away from the fight, cause I wanted to see that fight. The male Muto flies away and Godzilla seems to be chasing it. They then find another Muto in Nevada after it came out of nuclear waste and begins to attack Las Vegas. This Muto was confirmed to be a female. The military devises a plan to take a bomb off to sea, hoping it'll kill all these monsters. Godzilla rises out of the ocean near San Francisco and the military begins attacking Godzilla. Godzilla destroys the Golden Gate Bridge and starts heading toward the Mutos. The Mutos meet each other, and the female Muto starts laying eggs in the city. Godzilla finally confronts the male Muto and they begin fighting each other, but they freaking cut away from the fight. The military devises a plan to do a halo jump to extract the bomb that the Mutos have, and hope to get the bomb out of the city before it detonates. The Mutos overwhelm Godzilla, but lucky for him, our main character was able to distract the Mutos by blowing the eggs up. Godzilla unleashes his atomic breath on the female Muto and the male Muto defends her. Godzilla swats the crap out of the male Muto into a building and kills it, but starts getting tired. The female Muto awakens and starts chasing the army dudes. Our main character was able to push the boat that the bomb was on away from the shore, but the female Muto looks down at him. Godzilla then bites the female Muto and burns her head off with his atomic breath. Godzilla then faints near the bay and our main character reunites with his family. Godzilla then awakens and heads back into the ocean. This movie was good. I loved the visual effects and the scaling of the monsters. I saw this movie in theaters when I was 14 years old, and I had a blast seeing an actual Godzilla movie done right on the big screen. Now, it does have some issues like I said, but the payoff was worth it. Now, Shin Godzilla is not part of the Monsterverse, it's its one standalone Godzilla movie. So, basically an unidentified creature appears in Tokyo Bay and starts disrupting the Aqua Line. The government of Japan starts getting a bunch of professionals to determine what it is, The politics of Japan start talking with everyone around the world and start making preparations in case of a disaster. The creature then starts walking on land in an amphibious form and starts destroying the neighborhood. The creature starts evolving into a more upright stance. The military are unsure what to do and were going to attack it with attack helicopters, but there were still civilians in the area. The creature then runs off into the ocean. The government, military, and professionals across Japan try to devise a plan against Godzilla. Godzilla returns to Tokyo Bay looking even much bigger. Godzilla then starts smashing through the city, and the military start attacking him. Of course, it doesn't do anything except piss him off. The Japanese government then calls the American Air Force to drop bombs on Godzilla. It seems to have an effect since Godzilla was gushing blood from his back. But all it did was piss him off, and Godzilla starts emitting one of the most devastating atomic breaths ever on screen. He destroys the stealth bombers and decimates the rest of Tokyo. Godzilla then goes into a hibernation state, and the military devises a plan to use coagulant used for decreasing a nuclear reactor, so they figured it would work the same with Godzilla. They process the plan by attaching bombs to trains and blow them up on Godzilla's feet. It actually does work as Godzilla begins to fall to the ground, but Godzilla was still putting up a fight using his atomic breath and lasers to destroy everything around him. They proceed to put even more coagulant into Godzilla's mouth, and Godzilla ends up freezing. The ending shows that if Godzilla wasn't stopped, he was going to evolve into another evolution from his tail. This movie was good, but it was a more weirded take to Godzilla. The human characters were good, direction was good, and there's actually a deeper meaning behind this Godzilla. This Godzilla actually couldn't control himself and was in constant pain. Even his own atomic breath was hurting him. It's that unsettling. So yeah, this one was great, definitely check it out. The human drama is a bit satirical though, but it's still worth checking out. Now this is the first anime Godzilla movie, Godzilla Planet of the Monsters, and honestly, this could have had an interesting premise, but it just ends up being kinda boring. So, basically, after Godzilla takes over the Earth, destroys human civilization, and drives humanity out to live in space, they try to think of a way to go back to Earth and reclaim it from Godzilla. The main character, Haruo, mainly has a grudge against Godzilla, and leads the team back to Earth. They encounter a Godzilla-like creature and think that it's the main Godzilla and actually defeat it. Unknowingly though, the main Godzilla emerges out of a mountain as the biggest Godzilla ever on screen. 984 feet to be exact. This movie did have an interesting premise. It kinda reminded me of The 100 but with Godzilla. Unfortunately though, I thought it dragged and the characters were a bit emotional and boring. Highlight of the movie though is when Godzilla shows up, that's something. So yeah, interesting premise, but it's mostly boring. Then we have the sequel to that, Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle, which is even more boring. So, after being away for almost 19,000 years, Earth looks more primitive after being taken over by Godzilla. They find primitive-looking people and do research on them. They find a city made of nanometal which they created before Godzilla took over the world and was supposed to form Mechagodzilla. Instead, the nanometal just made an entire city. So they devise a plan to lure Godzilla into Mechagodzilla City to defeat Godzilla with the nanometal. It worked for about 5 minutes, then Godzilla regains consciousness and destroys Mechagodzilla City with his atomic breath. This movie was mostly boring because it just drags the human characters. I'm trying to remember what some of them were arguing about, but I think one of them wanted to infuse with the nanometal, so he went crazy or some shit like that. I don't know, the movie was a bit forgettable and boring, and Godzilla barely has any screen time. Which brings us to the final anime Godzilla movie, Godzilla the Planet Eater. So in this one, humanoid people from another dimension actually help the people from Earth escape Godzilla. However, the main leader wanted to use Haruo to control this weird, long, noodle-ass neck version of King Ghidorah that comes from another dimension. This movie was boring as fuck. I didn't like those dream sequences or whatever that was, and again, Godzilla barely has any screen time. There was a cool moment when Godzilla defeats King Ghidorah, but there was no payoff. The ending to this movie I thought was kinda dumb.